The Democrats have had plenty of opportunities to undo the damage that's been caused by Citizens United, but they've failed to do much about it. And there's a good reason. They're getting millions of dollars in corporate cash as a result of that very decision. I have attorney Howard Nations with me now to explain the story. Howard, Andy Kroll with Mother Jones did a great article on asking this question, and that is, what is the difference between Democrats and Republicans where it comes to taking corporate money, is where it comes to taking that 1%'s money so they can get reelected? What's your take on the way this story's developing with all these new PACs that are popping up? Priorities, for example, the Priority PAC for the Democrats, and then, of course, on the other side, a ton of Republican PACs. What's your take on it?
Well, to answer the question directly, the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans so far is that the Democrats have spent the money they raised much more wisely, because they had resounding victories last year while Rove and the Koch brothers really took big hits. But this has been a fascinating history on this, because President Obama's original position on this was that this was the Citizens United opinion, which ultimately led to all this unlimited fundraising, reversed a century of law that he believed opened the floodgates for special interest, including foreign corporations, to spend without limits in our elections. And he thought that that was scandalous, a disaster, bad for the American democracy, and he was totally against it.
Yeah, I remember. It was almost. I remember him coming out a couple of times, and by way of the House spokesman, and by him directly saying how it's corrosive, how it's destroying democracy, how we can't have it, how if we don't get it under control, we'll not have a political system that's sustainable. And then I guess the experts took a look at it and they said, well, isn't that just a bunch of mumbo jumbo talk, because we have the Obama administration doing exactly what the Republicans are doing. But really, if you think about it, Howard, they almost have to. But tell us what the Democrats have been doing as far as PAC money, kind of the 501c4 PAC money.
Well, the Democrats have completely embraced big money politics. They formed super PACs to defend the presidency, to gain seats in the House, and to preserve the majority in the Senate. President Obama was the first one to use the tax-exempt 501c4, which can accept unlimited funds from anonymous donors, and he uses it to promote his own policy agenda. Organizing for Action is his 501c4, and to his credit, I will say that he did last year disclose his donors, although he didn't have to.
But isn't the real first step, Howard, to say, look, if you're going to be critical of Citizens United, which we all should be, because it is a toxic poison for democracy, but don't you begin by saying, well, let's do something to change that. Let's write some laws that are going to impact that, to where there has to be disclosure. There has to be things that make us understand where this big money's coming from. I mean, if you think about it, the reason that among the many things that are scary about Citizens United, one thing is that we have foreign money coming in now.
We do.
Foreign money actually affecting elections. You have the offshore banking industry that is they're commingling their money with drug industry. We found it with terrorist industry. And now that money's coming back into the United States, affecting United States elections. And that's why we've always had this notion you don't allow this unlimited money in politics. And the Democrats are turning it on its head just the same way the Republicans are, aren't they?
Well, the difference is that President Obama did advocate for the Disclose Act, which would increase transparency in nonprofit groups, but the Republicans defeated that on filibuster. And when they did so, Obama had originally gone completely against the whole idea of having his own PAC, his own super PAC. But the first rule of politics is to get elected. So Priorities USA, when it first started, it was a couple of youngsters who had never done fundraising in their life. They launched it in 2011. It was Bill Burton and Sean Sweeney, and they had no luck whatsoever. They raised $2 million from Katzenberg, the movie mogul, But Obama actually mocked it. He didn't like it, made fun of it. And they were so far down in January 2012, they raised $58,000 at the same time that Romney's super PACs were raising $6.6 million. That's when it got President Obama's, that's when it got his attention and also got his blessing.
Well,
Point,
you know what, Howard? Andy Kroll in his story on Mother Jones talks about these very things, and one thing he says in there is it's an interesting quote. It came from one of the Democrats that were trying to support this, and it says, we don't like this money in the system. One of the Democrat strategists, one of the Democrat fundraisers. We don't like having to do this the same way that we don't like the fact that we're in a nuclear arms race. I guess the message being we have to do something about it. But that falls on deaf ears when you really consider the idea that if you want to do something about it, begin in Congress. Begin by changing laws that affect all of this. And so I do remember, of course, we all remember him making an attempt to talk about transparency, but it has to go really more to the heart of the issue, don't you think?
Well, it does. But what happened was when the Romney backers pledged $1 billion between Karl Rove and American Crossroads and the Koch brothers, they pledged $1 billion to defeat Obama. That's when Jim Messina, Obama's campaign manager, said, we can't, we've got to play by the same rules. We can't have two sets of rules in this case. And at that point, Priorities USA Action became President Obama's personal super PAC. He had been against it before, but it got his blessing, and it started raising millions of dollars a month. And the idea, to show you how powerful it was, Priorities started running those Romney ads about Bain Capital and Romney being just a heartless job-killing capitalist. Those resonated heavily in the Midwest, in Ohio and Wisconsin and Michigan with the unemployed worker. And Frank Luntz, who is a very highly respected GOP pollster, said that the Priority Acts alone has killed Romney in Ohio. And since Ohio was an outcome determinative state, it meant that super PAC and Burton and Sweeney and Katzenberg and Priorities team had a huge impact on the election. Mm-hmm. And that was also made sweeter by the hundreds of millions of dollars that were wasted in defeat by Rove and the Koch brothers.
Yeah, Kroll in his Mother Jones, Andy Kroll in his Mother Jones article, he lays out some contrasts, and he says, look, why is it that we couldn't have the same kind of success with John Kerry? Why is it that we couldn't have the same kind of success with Al Gore? And really it breaks down to a couple things. First of all, you had what I call Birkenstock advisors, warm, fuzzy advisors telling Kerry he couldn't get tough, telling Al Gore they couldn't get tough. But most importantly, you had strong central control of this PAC money. You had people like Paul Begala, who actually has enough sense to make good decisions about how to fight back. So when you compare the PAC money, it is startling. Here are the numbers. I know you've seen this, but this is what Andy Kroll reported. He said 7 of the 10 biggest super PAC funds in the United States, 7 of the 10 supported uniquely Republican efforts in 2012. And so if you take a look at it, we're kind of still outgunned. If you're progressive, you're outgunned. But and if you're progressive, I'm not certain these PACs are there for you anyway, from the Democrat side or the Republican side, because really, if you take a look at what's happening right now with Hillary Clinton, they're inventing Hillary Clinton. She's the darling of the Priority PAC, and all the money's coming from Wall Street, isn't it?
Yes. What's happening now is the Republicans' worst nightmare, because Priorities is merging the two most powerful political machines in the country, which is the Clinton machine and the Obama machine, and they've already officially endorsed Hillary. And you're now getting Jim Messina, the campaign manager for Obama, is now going to be co-chair of Priorities. Buffy Wicks from Obama campaign, executive director of Priorities. Jonathan Mantz from Hillary finance director is now the fundraiser for Priorities. And they're merging together with board members from Media Matters, Emily's List, Clinton White House aides. They're merging with. They're acting in concert with the Service Employee International Union, with Planned Parenthood, Conservation Voters, who
That's
incidentally
a strong coalition.
who incidentally have their own super PACs.
Yeah.
But they're going strongly, and if you compare that with what the Republicans are doing at this time, when they're splintered in so many different directions, they end up with 4 people responding to the president's State of the Union address. So you're going to have a huge coalescence of the Democrats. The question is whether it's a good thing to have it coalescing under the auspices of one of these super PACs. That's the big issue.
Well, the super PACs will be running government unless somebody goes in Congress and does something about it. And I'm not thrilled, to be frank with you, Howard, that it is Hillary Clinton that's the pick of the priority money. It seems to me like right now we're at such an important time. We ought to be paying more attention to people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders if we're actually going to change anything in this country. So the very fact that this priority money is going there, it doesn't give me a warm and fuzzy feeling, but that is what the Democrat Party has become. It is merely an extension of Wall Street. Howard Nations, thank you for joining me, okay?